Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here. Mama's Well. Yes, she is. Hey, everybody. Glad you're here. If you're new to the Mom as Well podcast, this is a place where we can connect as parents who are doing the hard things. We are nurturing ourselves so that we can nurture our children. We are growing up in some ways alongside our children. That's what I'm doing. And so if you are here to talk about those kinds of things, you're in the right place. And it's exactly what I want to talk about today. I've often said that my children have been my teachers over the years, and that remains true. And, the more I become aware of that truth, the more it shows up for me. And I was just thinking, as these things show up, I should share them. And I have a whole journal full of them. And so I thought, I want to start with one that's pretty recent. And I'm going to call these things, they actually are, they're these little moments where I get this big light bulb, a little moment, a little conversation or a little phrase or something I notice or something my kid says, or sometimes it can be a not so little moment, like a big explosion, but I learn something. It becomes a big deal. Little moments, big deals. And so that's what I'm going to call them. And so when they come up for me, I'm going to share them. And what I want to talk about today happened a few months ago. And my 8-year-old daughter, we were in the kitchen. It was just her and I, and she asked for some watermelon. And we had just cut the watermelon. And so I said, sure, you can have some watermelon. And as I'm going to the refrigerator to pull the watermelon out, I just start carrying on about how, it's close to dinner and we don't want to eat too much watermelon. As a matter of fact, if we eat too much watermelon, well, you all know what happens if you eat too much watermelon. So I'm going on and not even really aware of what I was doing. And my daughter stops me very politely, but very informative. And she says to me, Mom, Miss Joni, she says yes a lot. And I looked at her and I thought for a minute and I said, what do you mean? And just to let you know, Miss Joni is her and her husband Steve are dear friends of ours. And when we became foster parents, they got certified to be respite care help for us. And so, but not only have they stepped into that place when we were foster parents, but they have continued to nurture that relationship with Trinity, and it's a really special relationship. And she had plans to go stay with Miss Joni, and so Miss Joni was on her mind. And so she begins telling me about when she stays at Miss Joni's, she might say, Miss Joni, can we go to the store? And she says, and this is how she says it, Miss Joni, can we go to the store? Well, yes, Trinity, we can go to the store just as soon as we finish breakfast. Miss Joni, can we play cards? Well, yes, Trinity, as soon as we finish cleaning up our mess in the kitchen, we will play cards. And she goes on and on and on about all these questions she has for Miss Joni and all the ways that Miss Joni says yes. And, I could have easily, and this is something that I've done many times, I'm ashamed to say, in my past parenting with all my kids, is to take offense and immediately go to that place of shame. I'm not like Miss Joni. I say no. But for whatever reason, I was feeling secure and confident in my role as her mother. And so I had an opportunity, and the opportunity, I took it, and I became curious. And so I just said, hey, Trinity, are you trying to tell me that you would like me to say yes more? And she got a big grin on her face, and she said, yes. And I said, then it got fun, because then we began bantering back and forth with, well, yes, Trinity, you can have as much watermelon as you want. And yes, Trinity, we can play cards as soon as we're done eating this watermelon. And yes, Trinity, and yes, Trinity, and yes, Mama, and yes, Mama. And we went on and on and on. And it was super fun. And we laughed and giggled and we had a great time. And I enjoyed some watermelon with her. You know what? Definitely wish that I would have done more of that in the past. But Trinity invited me to an opportunity, a lesson, an opportunity to learn something. And so the funny thing is that I'm starting to notice in my life, it's like this synchronicity starts to happen. And when one thing shows up, it's something I'm supposed to learn, I'm supposed to recognize, I'm supposed to become aware of, it keeps showing up again and again and again. And that's what happened with this yes thing. So a few weeks later, I'm reading a book, The Connected Parent, which, by the way, is a great book. And they go on, and in a chapter, the whole first part of the book is talking about the attachment cycle and how we form attachment. Obviously, that's so critical in raising children, in general, but especially raising children that are in foster care or through adoption. And so they're talking about the attachment cycle, and they describe it as the giving of yeses. And she goes on to describe that in the first 2 years of life, that a baby hears hundreds of thousands of yeses in the form of the baby cries because they're tired. Yes, I will rock you and put you to bed. The baby cries because they're hungry. Yes, I will feed you. Yes, I will comfort you. Yes, I will love on you. Yes, I will sing to you. Yes, yes, yes. They don't hear no in the first few years of life. And that begins to form this attachment. And basically what's happening is the baby is learning, I trust, I can trust, I can trust. Well, let me read just a little bit about that. Let's see. On page 40 of this great book, which you can see I have tons of paper clips on, I want to go ahead. She says, how can I say yes? Imagine how cool that was for me when I have this little gyration that I had with my daughter, and I'm waking up to, I need to say yes more. And then I get affirmed by reading this book that actually what I'm doing is I'm building that attachment, that insecure attachment that I had and that she has. I'm building that by saying 3 little letters, yes. So she goes on to say, this is on page 40, for example, let's say you have a child who comes into your home from foster care at the age of 8. Because of this child's background, he didn't get 2 years of yeses. To help make up for this deficit and to build trust, you must find creative ways to say yes. So we explore the possibility with parents, and we encourage them to ask themselves, what are a dozen ways I can say yes? In later chapters of this book, we'll discuss topics on giving choices, voice, and compromises. These are all TBRI strategies. This book, by the way, is by Karen Purvis, the late Karen Purvis. She's passed away, but they've used scripts from her and writings from her, and Lisa Qualls, which is she's an adoptive mother. Great. This is a great book, by the way. So what are a dozen ways I can say yes? And then she goes on to say, we're going to discuss this later in the book, of how giving choices, that's a way to say yes, compromises, and giving voice, all powerful ways to build trust and relationship with your child. The giving of yeses and the meeting of physical needs were how trust was originally earned. Regardless of the age of the child in your home, these are still the pathways to trust, brain development, and healthy relationship with your child. A yes for a 2-year-old will look differently from a 12-year-old, but the principle is still the same. Powerful, right? Right in the middle of my yes lesson, I read this. Great book. Doesn't stop there, okay? I'm sitting in my office, and I look up on my shelf, and I notice, the yes brain. Can you believe it? It's so big too. Yes. So I look at this. I just see the spine of it. I had ordered this last year because I love Siegel and Bryson's books. I've read many of them, but I hadn't read it yet. So of course I'm supposed to look at it now. So I open up the book, and it's perfect. It's perfect. Let me just read you. I haven't finished this book, and I'm putting it aside because I'm in the middle of 2 books right now. But let me just read you what a yes brain is. I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea what this is. There are two different, in this book, they're saying two different brains. Obviously, this is an analogy, but the yes brain and the no brain, all right? The yes brain, as well as the opposite, it's no brain. If you expand that and think about it as an overall outlook on life, a no brain leaves you feeling reactive when you interact with people, which makes it nearly impossible to listen, to make good decisions, or connect with or care for another person. A focus on survival and self-defense kicks into gear. It leaves you feeling guarded and shut down when it comes to interacting with the world and learning new lessons. Your nervous system initiates its reactive fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. Fight means lashing out, flight means escaping, freeze means temporarily immobilizing yourself, and faint means collapsing and feeling utterly helpless. We already know, right, that our kids are kind of stuck in that place. So they're stuck in their no brain, right? Any of these four responses to threat can become triggered, preventing you from being open, connecting to others, and offering flexible responses. That is the reactive no brain state. Okay, in contrast, the yes brain emerges from different circuits in the brain that become activated and lead to receptivity rather than reactivity. That's what we're wanting. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be receptive so that we can be responsive, right? Scientists use the term social engagement system to refer to the set of neurocircuits that help us connect openly with others and even our own inner experience. As a result of receptivity, in an active social engagement system, we feel much more capable of addressing challenges in a strong, clear, and flexible way. In this yes brain state, we open ourselves to a sense of harmony, allowing us to absorb, assimilate, and learn from new information. Okay, here's the big deal. The yes brain mindset is what we want for our kids so that they can learn to view obstacles and new experiences not as paralyzing impediments, but simply as challenges to be faced and overcome and learn from. When kids work from a yes brain mentality, they are more flexible, more open to compromise, more willing to take chances and explore. They are more curious and imaginative, less worried about making mistakes. They are also less rigid and stubborn, which makes them better at relationships and more adaptable and resilient. That's the big word when it comes to handling adversity. They understand themselves and work from a clear internal compass that directs their decisions as well as the way they treat others. Oh my gosh, who doesn't want that? I want a yes brain. Yes, 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 yes. I even feel good when I say it. So yes. Anyway, I just thought that was incredible. Trinity just invited me to open my mind and to see something. And then all of a sudden, all of these different things start emerging. And so I'm in a lesson of learning to say yes. Anyway, I haven't finished that book. I'm going to finish it. But like I said, I'm in the middle of 2 books, which I love to read. And I've learned so much from books that I've read. And that's why I'm excited, because I want to I'm going to be starting a book study, and I want to invite you to join me. This fall, we're not going to start it. We're going to get through the summer, get kids back in school. But in the fall, early fall, you'll be hearing from me. I believe, don't hold me to this, but I think the first book is going to be this Connected Parent book. I really like it. It's super easy. And I think I think it'd be a great starting place. So if you're interested, click in the show notes. There'll be a link in the show notes. The best way is for you to go to mamaswell.com and sign up, subscribe. And when you do that, you're going to hear from me every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, you're going to get a blog and a podcast and let you know what's going on in my world. And subscribers will be the first to know when these book studies start and what are all the details. So I hope you'll join me. I think it'll be fun. Share this. Share your little moments, big deals in the comments below. Subscribe, like, and we'll see you next week.
Mama's Way.